Okay, I think we're good. I think we're live. It says I'm streaming on YouTube with a live webinar. New technology for me, kids, so I forgive me for the slow start. And I know I don't pay enough attention to you guys, YouTube. I'm focused so much on Facebook and Instagram because I'm building a business that responds to using Facebook and Instagram. So that's where my focus has been. But I have not forgotten about you guys on YouTube. And thank you for continuing to subscribe. Every few days I get another email saying someone has subscribed to me on YouTube, and it made me want to come out and do this retrograde teaching because Mercury, of course, is about to go retrograde. He's actually already started his 3-act cycle. I want to talk about what the Mercury retrograde is and why this one is particularly deep, powerful, and important. They all are. But subject to hyperbole, dramatic and passionate as I am in my expression, this one's amazing. All right, let's start first with just a little overview about what retrograde is and why Mercury retrogrades are as discombobulating as they are for us. First of all, what the Mercury retrograde cycle is an optical illusion in physics of two moving bodies in space at different speeds have in relationship to each other a perspective that one is moving backwards when the other one overtakes the second moving body in terms of speed and passing by. It requires two bodies in space moving at different speeds. And this happens with every planet from the perspective here on Earth. You've seen this in your car if you've been a passenger and you're on the freeway, and you'll either see the hubcaps of another car look like it's going to spin around, which they can't possibly be doing, but it's this momentary optical illusion that's created by one car passing the other. And there's this minuscule sense of, oh, that's moving backwards. Well, that's happening in a more protracted way up in space. And with Mercury, who moves very fast, and the Earth is moving pretty fast compared to Mercury, because of the rapidity of the orbits and the closeness of the planet, that retrograde with Mercury happens like clockwork every 88 days for 22 days, every 88 days for 22 days, every 88 days for 22 days. I was brought up by a man who was a watchmaker. My dad fixed watches and fixed clocks. And I liken Mercury's retrograde cycle as the inner spring of the clock mechanism that has to be wound up, and then it travels in through time, and then it has to be wound up again. That experience of having to intervene at the central hub of the mechanism of the mind, which is, in this analogy, the inner spring of the clock. With you, it's you as the clock and the inner spring being your mind. Periodically has to go through an integration process. We're moving through life. We're collecting all sorts of data month after month, and suddenly the mind says, too much. We got to figure some of this shit out. We got to discard that which is extraneous. We got to make more important and deeply integrated into the system the stuff that's been really important. And we're going to do that while Mercury appears to move backward in the sky. And why might that be? Well, there's an archetypal interpretation of backward movement, retrograde movement. If you consider direct movement as conscious awareness, and then retrograde as hearkening to the unconscious experience. Backward means inward. Backward means the past. Backward means insider consciousness in process, as opposed to outsider consciousness in forward movement. So when Mercury turns around and goes retrograde, we are processing information and data as it lives inside ourselves in such a way that if we didn't, I don't think we would function properly. Now, because in my doctoral studies in psychology and my interest in dreams and dream interpretation, I also learned a lot about sleep in that process. And I liken this to what happens in REM sleep, which is similar in that the brain is collecting data all day long and we go to sleep. And during REM sleep, the brain fires back up again, but not in a forward moving way. It fires up and we are paralyzed so that we don't move around acting out all of the stuff that's happening in our neofrontal cortex, but we are processing every conversation, every thought, every interaction we had during the day, turning some of that information into short-term memory and discarding the rest into the ethers of the unconscious. And then when we wake up the next morning, our brain is clear and ready to go again. Similarly, that's what's happening in the Mercury retrograde period, that every 3 or 4 months, we are filled up with stuff, data, information, thoughts, visionary ideas, conversations, and we got to integrate. So Mercury appears to move backwards. We take a dive into the inner landscape and do that process. Now, Mercury is how we navigate. Mercury is the mind. Mercury is what we engage when we're like, oh, which way do I have to go? Is it safe to cross the street? Is it cold? I need to put on a sweater. All of the thinking processes that help you move through your life, that is Mercury in action. So when Mercury takes a 3-week break from looking out and says, I got to go in the back room, I'll be with you in a bit. Take care, don't bump into the furniture too badly. And he goes off for 3 weeks and processes. We bump into the furniture because our navigating mechanism is turned within as opposed to looking out and forward. That's my best sort of artistic, analogous, symbolic interpretation of what's happening in a Mercury retrograde. And hopefully the image drives home the importance of the cycle. Like, I'm interested in sharing with you the importance of the 3-week process of going within and having an unconscious conversation with yourself about how you think, than I am worried about saying, oh, watch out, everybody, I'm an astrologer and I'm going to tell you to be afraid of Mercury going retrograde in November. Don't be afraid of it. Dive in, have at it, and understand that in the first act of Mercury's retrograde cycle, where we are right now, we're getting all of the information we need to have a more comfortable 3-week process when he actually does turn around, because he's signaling to us in this period what's going to be up for renewal, reversal, and readdressing when he does turn around. We're in that now. And I'm going to give you dates. So get out a pen and pencil to help with how you're going to navigate based on what I'm going to share with you. So the turnaround date is when Mercury is actually moving backwards. The clunky, discombobulating 21 or so days begins on the 31st of October and goes to the 20th of November. So that's the retrograde. That's the backward movement. That's the, okay, you can bet your ass things are going to be bumpy and challenging in that major portion of the cycle where he's actually moving backwards. But now in the month of October, having started on October 11th, all the way through the 31st, Mercury is in what's called his retrograde shadow. Retrograde because he's going to be back here when he turns around and goes retrograde. Shadow meaning it's not the actual moment, but the shadow of it, the pre-shadow, if you will. From the 11th through the 31st of October, everything that comes into your experience from the neck up is up for review during the backward journey from the 31st to November 20th. So in a very general way, know that. Be paying attention. Whenever you stumble onto this video, whatever date it is, think back to the 11th of October and anywhere between then and the 31st. Everything that seems up for you as a function of your thinking, your interaction, anything that requires planning and vision and movement and talking and negotiating is going to be part of the retrograde process. And so that's a general, just pay attention between the 11th and the 31st, and you'll have a better experience of the 31st through November 20th, because you are making notes for yourself of what are the themes, what are the interactions seeming to point to as it concerns issues that you might be stumbling through. So that's very general. Another thing to consider of any Mercury retrograde is what's the sign? What's the sign that it's taking place in, and what does that mansion mean to you? Now, if you know your natal chart and I tell you that Mercury is retrograding in Scorpio between 11 and 27 degrees of Scorpio, that's more information for you. So if you have any knowledge of working with your chart, make a note of that. 11 degrees of Scorpio to 27 degrees of Scorpio, and then back again in November, and then back again from late November into December. That's where Mercury is going to be crisscrossing. So if you know what house in your natal chart Scorpio falls into, then you know that's where the juice is. Also, the quality of the sign. What does Scorpio bring to our consciousness? Change, transformation, death, and rebirth are involved when Scorpio's in the room. Secrets and hidden things are involved when Scorpio's in the room. So this retrograde cycle has a lot of capacity to take us into territory that we've either not been before, or that we've been avoiding, or that involve things that got revealed to you either now or in that process of the 3 weeks of retrograde. Scorpio's really interesting energy from that perspective. Scorpio invented the idea that I don't have to be so private about everything. I can retain stuff for myself and keep those things close to the vest. That's certainly part of your human birthright, right? But there's also an archetypal consciousness around hiding, deceiving, keeping hidden through the intentionality of secretiveness that Scorpio invented as well, and that a retrograde process is more likely to kick up than anything else. But the thing that I really want to leave you with, at least from the way I like to teach about how to have a more conscious embodiment, is that the Scorpio archetype is where we allow change to occur, where we surrender to death, trusting that every death is leading us to a rebirth, because that's the nature of death and rebirth, and Scorpio invented that. Another thing that makes this particular Mercury retrograde really different is the meeting of Venus and Mercury that's going on this autumn, spring for you down under, of Mercury and Venus. Mercury is the mind, Venus is the heart. And one of the challenges of conscious embodiment is a lack of congruity between the head and the heart that so many human beings have. The mind wants something that maybe the body and the heart doesn't want, or the mind wants something that the body and the heart feels it doesn't deserve, or there's a craving for something that is wanted and needed at a heartfelt level, but the mind is too distracted to be able to focus on it. There's all sorts of ways that mind heart congruency is important and a challenge for us as human beings. And certainly if you've done any dipping of your toe into the consciousness of the laws of attraction and manifestation consciousness, you know that the mind is what holds the seed of possibility, but it's the feeling energy that nurtures and sustains that so that it can be birthed into form. But the mind is also operating unconsciously. This is why mind and heart congruity is important for you to cultivate as an individual, because that heartfelt capacity to fertilize and nurture your ideas are going to fertilize and nurture your unconscious ideas before your conscious ones, because the ones that are in the unconscious have much more power to create. And so the act of conscious embodiment includes the healing of trauma and the developing of practices that align the heart and the mind more easily. And when it's happening out there, it's happening in here as well. That means that every, bunch of months, Mercury will swipe around in conjunct Venus. And when that happens as a transit out there, we benefit because internally we are aligned mind and heart when that happens out there. Even if you're not aware of it, that's the nature of A, astrology, and B, the mirrored consciousness in action. If heart and mind in the cosmos is in alignment, it's in alignment within the hearts and minds of every being, sentient being on the planet. This occurred last month on September 13th. September 13th, Venus and Mercury came together, and then they moved forward. Mercury is much faster than Venus, so he sort of shot into the lead, right? And a typical time, that would be the end of it. We would have had a lovely alignment opportunity in the middle of September. We would have benefited from that, whether we knew it or not. But what happened this autumn or spring down there is, because of Mercury's upcoming retrograde, though he passed Venus and pulled into the lead, he started slowing down, and Venus is catching up. So all of the month of October, during this retrograde shadow, Venus is catching up to Mercury, and on the 30th of October, right before Mercury turns around, they come together again for an unprecedented second conjunction in 6 weeks. That's rare, that's unusual, and that's beautiful. And we get to fold that consciousness directly into the Mercury retrograde process because it happens just as Mercury is stationing on the 30th. They come together and we are alignment of mind and heart, and mind says, you go on, Venus, you go ahead. I got to process this shit. A lot came up for me about mind and heart and congruity, and I'm not sure I'm quite ready to move forward in a full integrated process. I need to take about 21 days to turn around, go within in the archetype of Scorpio where change and transformation takes place, and consider all of this. I just love the elegance of this. This is rare. As an astrologer, I am never the one to jump on the bandwagon, even though I speak hyperbolically about the opportunities that astrology offers. I never speak hyperbolically about astrology. It's fear-based. You know, you see a meme that says 5 planets in retrograde. Oh my God, we're gonna lose our mind. It's like bullshit. Retrogrades happen all the time, and when a lot of retrogrades are happening, it's not like the world is going to end. But fear-based astrologers will tell you that. I'm not that guy, but I'm here to tell you that this is rare. Venus and Mercury, heart and mind coming together middle of September, doing it again at the end of October, and then Mercury saying, I haven't figured this out well enough. I gotta go within. That happens from the 30th of October into the 31st of October, and 31st is the day that Mercury turns around. Now, during the process from the 31st through the 20th of November, while Mercury is backwards, he's going to be making 5 triple transits, meaning there are planets that he's going to hit and bring the energy of those hits into the retrograde process with them. The most powerfully felt is a sesquisquare 135-degree angle with Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron isn't a personal planet. He's not a social planet. He's not an outer planet. He's the planet of healing the wounds from childhood and this life in order that we might have a healing experience from birth to death. This, by the way, includes birth wound. It's not just traumatic family experiences, although most of us, some of us more than others, received way more trauma than others. The benefit of that for me personally is that I became a spiritual teacher, dove in and healed all of those wounds, and now get to live wound-free as a result. And by the way, every time I say that, I want to make sure that people understand that though I am wound-free, I am not personality-free. So I'm still capable of being reactive. I'm still capable of hurting other people. And I'm still capable of being hurt. All of us have wounds that we need to attend to. And this particular retrograde has this itchy angle between Chiron and Mercury that is the identifier. It's not a strong enough angle to create anything. So it's not like this is going to be a particularly wounding retrograde cycle. It has the capacity, though, to point where's the wound at this level of your development, right? The 135-degree angle can't make something happen, but it can be uncomfortable if something's not in alignment. So the 16th of October is the first time that this hits. And so give or take a day or two around the 16th of October, pay attention. What was coming up during that period of time around wound, self-assessment of wounded experience? Whatever does emerge around the 15th, 16th, 17th of October is going to return in the November retrograde. A semi-square to Jupiter, similarly not strong enough geometry to create any events, but it's definitely an awareness moment of what's inhibiting your ability to expand and receive abundance. Jupiter is abundance and prosperity. A semi-square is a mild conflict and obstacle geometry. And on the 5th of October, that was when Mercury was agitating Jupiter, saying, yeah, you want to be bigger, you want to expand, you want to have all that joy and abundance at your birthright. Something's not quite right about that. There's an obstacle or a conflict you have to move through. Take a look at October 5th with a day or two on either side. That might give you a clue about November as well. A sesquisquare to the north node, which is future, destiny, dharma, just means that it's edgy, it's itchy. We're moving forward. That's good news. Mercury with the north node says anything that's happening is part of forward movement, but it's not pleasant geometry indicating that forward movement. It's that 135-degree angle that's going to say, I feel like I'm moving forward, except for here or except for there. You see, that's the sesquisquare will show you where the itch is. So that's coming up on October 26th. So if there's something at the end of October around those dates that feels like it is illuminating for you some sense of what's not quite right in your vision or in your forward movement, that will also be part of the Mercury retrograde process. Sextile with Saturn and a trine with Neptune are more backgroundy kind of things because that's a social planet and an outer planet. Very positive. A sextile with Saturn means that anything that we're doing is productive and in alignment with our karmic work. That's an amazing background angle to have in this Mercury retrograde cycle. Since I just outlined 3 that are itchy as all get out, this one says, if you do the work, you're going to have magnificent results. And by the work, I mean paying attention, being conscious, shifting and changing things that you learn about as you learn about them and being willing to dive into that work. This Mercury retrograde is going to be very supportive of that. October 13th is when that first hit. This is less valuable to go back to October 13th and say, what was going on? I would call both the sextile of Saturn and what I'm about to talk about, the trine to Neptune, is just background support. And in this one is the support of the great teacher. This is nice. Because if Saturn were interacting with Mercury in a difficult way, this Mercury retrograde would be far more clunky and difficult. But this one suggests it's going to be productive and powerful. And a trine to Neptune, the date of that is the 15th of October. That's just a beautiful use of the mind. Neptune and Mercury in a trine increases our divine connection. It increases our intuition. It helps us utilize the mystery a little bit more, and is also, not for nothing, one of those aspects that is going to ensure that the revelation of that which was secret and hidden is going to be part of this retrograde. Scorpio says, I hide it and I can. And Neptune says, I invented the rose-colored glasses, or deceit or illusion. Mercury, in his precision, in a trine with Neptune, may go a long way to sort of push past ways that secrets have been held. So it's a positive energetic and a positive geometry. And one of the artifacts it may have, because Mercury is in Scorpio, is this process of revealing secrets as we go. That was the 15th of October. So take a look at that if you want, but also understand that both Mercury's interactions with Saturn and Neptune are background for the entire experience. The wrap up is between the 20th of November and December 7th. So you can expect in the third act, the 20th of November till the 7th of December, to be the wrap up. That's called the direct shadow. Mercury is now direct, but he's covering material that he's already been over twice before for the third and final time. And then once we get past December 7th, we're in a 2-month period or so of what I call the free and clear period, where Mercury's moving forward without any hints of, going back. Have at it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.